Welcome to Agriculture in Review, a news program of interest to South Dakota farmers and ranchers prepared by the South Dakota Farmers Union. A farmer today produces as much in 2 hours of work as he did in 5 hours just 15 years ago. By the same token, one farm worker, on the average, supplied food and fiber for 15 persons in 1950. Today, he supplies food and fiber for 37. This improvement in farm efficiency and productivity has accompanied our fast-changing agricultural policy, a change that has resulted from depletion of our grain surpluses and a considerable increase in our food exports. But this changing role of agriculture has also posed a lot of new questions. Have we come to the end of the line in our ability to provide large-scale food shipments to food-short nations? Must exports from now on be cut back to maintain adequate supplies for our own domestic needs? And certainly tied to this changing era for agriculture is the fundamental question of, can the world of the future feed itself? Then, too, what is the challenge to American agriculture and to world agriculture? These and other questions were discussed by Assistant Secretary of Agriculture George Murren at the Conference of Nutrition and Food Technology on the World Food Shortage in Chicago, September 19th. First, on the question of U.S. supplies, Murren noted that while surpluses of grains and dairy products are gone, the United States still has large reserves. The surpluses have not been replaced by shortages. The carryover of wheat on July 1st was 535 million bushels, which is still slightly more than a full year's domestic food use. Then, too, the United States now has a national carryover of food grains of 47 million tons, which is a little higher than the nation's reserve target of 45 million tons. This, Murren said, is adequate to meet all our domestic, commercial, export, and concessional needs for the year ahead. He emphasized that commodity programs are still needed, and the agricultural scene can change with amazing rapidity. The demands of 1968 and 1969 upon American agriculture may be quite different from those of 1966 and 1967. Murren observed that world food production since the late 1930s has increased at a somewhat faster rate than the growth of world population. But at the same time, increased per capita demand has made food consumption in the less developed countries rise faster than production. The increased demands of these emerging nations of the world, along with recent agricultural setbacks in the communist countries, have been principally responsible for two significant developments. The first, according to the USDA official, is the change in status of North America from a moderate grain exporter to near dominance as the world's grain merchant. The United States and Canada exported 5 million metric tons of grain in 1934 to 1938, but they are exporting 12 times that much, 60 million tons, this year. The second development is a sharp reduction in world carryover supplies of wheat and rice. Net grain imports of these less developed countries totaled about 25 million metric tons in the year 1964 and 65. This year they will be well above 30 million tons. The question is, what will they be in 1970 and in 1980? Our Food for Peace program is geared to help meet these needs, but the United States does not seek to close the world food gap by its own efforts, nor could it. There is no present need, explained Murren, quote, to call on American agriculture to produce all out, unquote. This nation has carried much of the aid given in past decades, but it is hoped now that other nations will increase their contributions to the development of these starving people, and that we can help these nations increase their own capacity to meet their own needs. That, in capsule form, sums up the message given at that Chicago Food Conference by Assistant Secretary of Agriculture George Murren. And that also wraps up another edition of Agriculture in Review. This program was prepared by the South Dakota Farmers Union. We invite you to join us again next week for another review of Agriculture's highlights.